You're listening to the 31st edition of the Bitachon podcast. We continue in the Alter of Navardik. He says as follows in Perek Tes, the 9th chapter. He says that there are different levels within the concept of Bitachon. We find that there is a sefer called R Yisroel from R Yisroel Salanter, the one who founded the Musar movement, who also, there's a famous story with R Yisroel Salanter, that he was in the Beis Medrash with the son of the Rashash, and they were talking about Bitachon. Does it need to be something that you need? Do you have to do any hishtadlus? Do you have to put in any efforts? And Rabbi Yisrael turned to the son of the Rashash, as my Rosh Hashiva tells it, and he said to him, look, you don't have to do any hishtadlus, you don't even have to need it. I can have Bitachon, I'm going to have a golden watch. And it wasn't too long after that when in came a cantonist. The cantonist was a person who had spent most of his life in the Russian army, and he didn't have too much to show for his life, but what he did have was a golden watch. And he said that he came into the Beis Medrash and he said, I don't have too much to show for my life, but all I have is this golden watch, and I want to give it to the biggest Talmud Chacham in the Beis Medrash. And all eyes were on Rabbi Yisroel Salanter as he received the golden watch. It's a famous story. So Rabbi Yisrael says that there are different types, different levels of Bitachon. And he says like this: Bitachon shel Chovos Halevavos, Bitachon shel Ramban. He says that you have the Chovos Halevavos is Bitachon, which we can call Bitachon with Hishtadlus, and you have the Bitachon of the Ramban, which is Bitachon without Hishtadlus, without efforts. According to the Chovos Halevavos, so a person needs to have Bitachon alongside of the efforts that he does. You can't, according to the Chovos Halevavos, you can't just step back and ask God to do everything for you. You have to do something yourself. According to the Chovos Halevavos, you cannot depend on a miracle. Of course, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can do anything. He can save a person without they're doing any efforts. According to the Chovos Halevavos, what a person needs to do, put in efforts, do normal efforts, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes in and does the rest. And the sin of King Asa was that it wasn't that he did some efforts to go to a doctor, but rather that he did all the efforts without at all turning to Hashem, without turning to God to help him, to take care of him. Okay, so that is the concept of Bitachon according to the Chovos Halevavos. Ula HaRamban, but according to the Ramban's approach, as well as the Gra, as well as the Madrigas HaAdam, HaBitachon ula hashlich Yehovah el Hashem levad. So Bitachon means to throw your package onto God alone. Belishum siba, without making any effort at all. Umasher darshu razal v'rapo yirapeh. So what do Chazal say? Our sages tell us, the pasuk says that the person has to pay. If a person causes damage to somebody, and there are doctor bills, so you got to pay the doctor bills. V'rapo yirapeh. The Gemara Baba Kama says that a doctor has permission to heal. But a person who's a true servant of Hashem, a person who's truly striving for greatness in his connection to God, so such a person should not go, according to the Madrigas Adam, according to others, should not go to the doctor at all. Right? The lashon of the Ramban is Mala Reife base Yiras Hashem, something like that. What is a doctor doing in the house of someone who's a Yoreh Shamayim, who fears heaven? Okay, so on the highest level, person does not need to go to a doctor. Person does not need to do any hishtadlus, put in any efforts at all. That's the highest level. He says something which is really important, and this is really talking to most of us, because we may not be holding. Of course, it's possible, but we may not be holding on the level of Bitachon without any hishtadlus, without any efforts. Nevertheless, even according to the Chovos Halevavos, you can't do a lot of hishtadlus, says the Alter of Navardik. Rak lasei siba she'efshar gam kein al pi hateva la'arviach. Person needs to do some kind of effort, but not endless effort, not so much effort, not I don't have to do it all the way. Rather, I need to do something that al pi hateva, the parnasa can come, but then only to trust in Hashem. Well, says the Alter, his Yesod, which we've gone over, and it's so important to hear again. Doing too much hishtadlus, putting in too much effort, is a chisar and bitachon. It shows that we don't fully trust in Hashem, and therefore it's problematic. And I'm reminded, I'm sure I've told this story also, but I heard from my Rosh Yeshiva that the Alter Navardik, so he would go into the doctor, and he would tell the doctor what's going on with him, and he would get a prescription, and he'd walk out of the doctor, he'd throw the prescription in the garbage. So his students said, what's the story? Like, either you go to the doctor, use the prescription, or you don't go to the doctor, you don't use the prescription. What are you doing? And he explained to them that we need to know where we're holding, which means that in order to have the right bitachon, I still need to know what I'm having bitachon about. I need to know if I have a problem, if I have a sickness, if I don't have a sickness, what do I have to have bitachon about? I need to have that clarity. But where do I place my trust? I place my trust in Hashem, and I need to watch out for the things that take away from my trust. If I'm too involved in hishtadlus, it takes away from my bitachon. That's the reality. But those who do not believe that God guides the world, that God is intimately involved in our lives every day, every way, so they believe that it depends on the astrology signs, depends on the stars in the heavens, or more to us, it depends on our efforts. The way of the fool is to make many plans, many efforts, many ways, quote, for God to send me what I want, but they do a little bit more than necessary. I do a little bit more than necessary because I don't properly trust. Sorry, I went back. The R Yisroel, this is all from the R Yisroel Salanter, that people who don't have the proper faith, people who believe in the stars and the astrology signs, don't believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so what happens to them is that they're too involved in efforts. They're pushing too far, and because of that, the result is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as we saw previously, Hashem deals with them the way that they deal with Him. Hashem Tzilcha, Hashem is our shadow. So if we believe that our efforts are going to be that which produces the results, Hashem says Gesundheit, as you wish. Says the Alter Navardik, a foundational idea that for those who are balabatim, who fear Hashem, so they need to have the sheet of the Chovos Halevavos. And the sheet of the Ramban, the opinion of the Ramban, which is to have bitachon without hishtadlus, are those who kol kula, their whole life is dedication to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Their whole life is sitting in the Beis Medrash, learning Torah, being involved in their spirituality. So those people, it's given to them asher achas shoalu shivtim beis Hashem kol yemei chayim, that all they wish is to sit in the house of God all their lives. That they don't need any efforts. All they need to do is to trust in Hashem without putting in any efforts. So the Alter Navardik clearly is speaking to the Chovos Beis HaMedrash. She's speaking to those who are sitting and learning all the time. And he says that those who are indeed out to, are working, or out in the world working, so they can also have bitachon, but they need to do some kind of hishtadlus, some kind of efforts. But let's not forget, even according to Chovos Halevavos, there's an obligation to remember from whom it comes and not to do too much. The Chovos Halevavos also says, this is an important point because people often miss this. The Chovos Halevavos also says that there are those who are called Yechidei Skula, individuals who have the ability to have bitachon without doing any efforts. But Amar Sham, the highest, the greatest, the reason that Kadosh Baruch Hu obligated a person to find, to put in hishtadlus, to put in efforts in order to get his income, to get his needs. Ushar mashu tzarich elav l'shnei panim. Now, other things that he needs is for two reasons. One is because the Torah obligates the soul of a person to serve Hashem. Hashem wants us to do things that on the surface seem like the opposite of what they are. He wants us to be involved in Hishtadlus and keep our focus on Him. Focus on Him. Despite our Hishtadlus, despite our efforts, keep the focus on Him. Don't forget from whom it comes. Okay? Hu hatzerech achisaron l'mashanachus l'machol mimachol l'mishlam ha'osh u'moin u'mishkol. And this is how we get all the things that we're missing, meaning how we fill our lacks from food, drink, clothing, a home, and having a wife. So the first thing is that we need to do that. We need to focus and remember from whom these things come. They don't come magically. They all come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And as we put in efforts in order to receive those things, we need to remind ourselves again and again, from whom does it come? He says the second reason is that if we wouldn't be involved in Hishtadlus, so then the result could be that we would rebel against Hashem because we'd be too involved in just running around and running after our taivas, against running around trying to get our desires fulfilled. But the bottom line of it is, even according to Chovos Halevavos, even if we do have to do Hishtadlus, even if that is the path, but of course, the entire time we are to be looking at and looking for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be the one who fulfills and brings our efforts to fruition, and not depending only upon ourselves. Thank you so much for listening.